Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs. In our next few segments, we're going to hear from the United Nations, of course, ongoing issues with Israel and Palestine, as now the Israelis are considering, or at least talking about, they're going to attack Rafah if hostages aren't released to them. And we're going to get back to that in a second, as the United States vetoed an Algerian proposal for ceasefire in the UN Security Council floor. So we will get back to that. And the United Nations, from the press floor, we're going to have a segment about that, as they're going to again talk about the ongoings between Palestine and Israel and other issues that are going to arise. So, but in British Columbia, there was the throne speech. The Lieutenant Governor Janet Austin, as she opened the final session of the 42nd Parliament by delivering the speech from the throne. And there are a few quotes here from David Eby. While our government is proud of its progress we've made for the people throughout tough times, we're nowhere near satisfied. Our economy is strong, with low unemployment and highest wages in the country, but there are still too many people struggling to get ahead, even those in the middle class who earn a decent paycheck. That's why we'll continue to bring people together to solve big challenges. And he also is quoted, in this time of global uncertainty and turmoil, we face some important questions. We will be as a province where people are driven apart and left to face tough challenges alone, or we will continue to be the place where people take care of each other and build a better future together. If we reject division and bring people together to solve problems, our brightest days are ahead of us. So some of these ideas will be reflected into the throne speech as it is read by Janet Austin. We're going to hear that segment today as the show plays forward. But let's get back to the Algerian proposal for a ceasefire between Palestine and Israel, and this is what was highlighted with the UN Security Council. The U.S. used the veto power to squash Algeria's draft for a resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and bring revival text that would condemn Hamas, but also support a temporary ceasefire. The U.S. expected to circulate its own draft later on Tuesday. Negotiations will be far from easy, with both Russia and China voicing strong opposition to the third use of a veto by the United States. The council members lament continued suffering and lambasts possible military operation into Rafah. Algeria ambassador says it will continue to knock on the council's door and maximize pressure on Israel and Hamas for a ceasefire that will end the bloodshed. The veto does not absolve Israel of its obligations. It says the ambassador for the observer state of Palestine. The ceasefire will be a death sentence for Israelis and ordinary Gazans alike, says Israel's ambassador. Qatar ambassador, speaking on the Gulf Cooperation Council, says her delegation will continue to facilitating efforts to free hostages and protect civilians with a secure ceasefire. As we know, Israel has continued to hit civilian targets, claiming that the Hamas is either hiding hostages there or they're hiding militants that will continue to fight against the Israeli forces. And we still continue to hear that it is a horrible place for children to be right now because there's nothing but death and destruction. So why don't we listen to what the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations said in a media stakeout at the United Nations in New York City.
Good afternoon, everyone. You just heard me make the case for a resolution that I believe all of us can agree to. In fact, the points in the proposed resolution have all been articulated by the other 14 members of this council. These were not just U.S. ideas. They were all of our ideas that I have heard nearly every member of this council discuss both privately and publicly. Ideas that would not put sensitive negotiations in jeopardy, that could lay the foundation for sustainable peace. And yet, we were forced into a vote that did not reflect that consensus. You might ask why, and I'll leave that to you to opine on. Perhaps some on the council did not actually want a resolution to pass. Because if they did, today's vote would not have happened. Over the last several weeks, I communicated the United States' concerns publicly and privately. We submitted numerous rounds of edits. We implored our colleagues not to rush toward failure. And so, having put forward an alternative path, we intend to take it. The draft we presented is a forward-leaning resolution, and it is one that we intend to work on in good faith with other council members to ensure it gets over the finish line. That kind of process was disappointingly absent from negotiations on the text we just voted on. All to say, we're not giving up. We're eager to continue working with the Council on this proposal, one that would see a temporary ceasefire as soon as practicable, based on the formula of all hostages being released, and one that would get aid into the hands of those Palestinians who so desperately need it. All told, we intend to do this the right way so that we can create the right conditions for a safer, more peaceful future. And we will continue to actively engage in the hard work of direct diplomacy on the ground until we reach a final solution.
I think we can start with Rami with Al Jazeera.
Thanks, Nate. Ambassador, so far everything that Israel has announced it has done, despite the protestations of the UN and the rest of the international community, almost 30,000 Palestinians are dead. Israel is now threatening to attack Rafah, the last supposedly safe zone in Gaza, if the hostages are not released by Ramadan. Do you really think that your draft resolution, if adopted, would prevent Israel from attacking Rafah, as they are already in violation of many Security Council resolutions, including resolutions 2712 and 2720? And why doesn't your government instead put effective limits on Israel, like conditioning military support to meaningfully impact their decision-making?
Look, we have made clear, I made it clear in my statement today, the President has made it clear, the Secretary has made it clear that no attacks on Rafah should take place given current circumstances, and we will keep pressing that. We know, we've heard what Israel has said. They have not gone in to attack Rafah, and we will keep engaging and urging and pushing in that direction to ensure that that does not happen.
What about conditioning military support?
I can't give you advance information on what we're saying to the Israelis related to that issue, but I can be clear that we are pressing the Israelis urgently every single day.
Go to Michelle.
Thanks, Ambassador. You mentioned in the Council that the call in your resolution for a temporary ceasefire reflects the language used by President Biden last week. After months of the US not wanting to refer to the word ceasefire, what's brought about the change in this language? Is this to sort of appease domestic pressures, global pressures? What's brought that on?
Look, Michelle, I've been clear from the very beginning that we are working around the clock on the ground to get humanitarian pauses that will allow for the hostages to be released and for assistance to get in. And that happened in November, and we got close to, 100 hostages out was the final number, and we got needed humanitarian assistance in. And we're continuing to work on this. This is not a change. It is not, it's what we've been doing all along. It hasn't changed what we've been doing.
Thank you, Ambassador. Sam Azim, Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. I have two questions. First, you have been saying that the Security Council, that you are not agreeing to the resolution under, different reasons, but among others that the Security Council doesn't condemn Hamas. But as a matter of fact, on October 18th, it was the US that vetoed a resolution that condemned Hamas. This is one thing. The second thing, I think a lot of Palestinians ask the question, what is the line? When is enough Palestinian? There have been more than 29 Palestinian civilians who were killed, majority of whom women and children, and people are asking how many deaths are enough for the US to stop delivering weapons and to call for a ceasefire immediately for humanitarian reasons. Thank you.
In answer to your first question, there were a number of other issues with that resolution. It did call for a condemnation of Hamas. It did not recognize Israel's right to self-defense, which is a right that Israel has. And there were other issues with that particular resolution. Since that time, we still have not gotten condemnation of Hamas, despite the fact that I think it is, every council member almost every council member will say that in their statements. We think it should be reflected in a resolution, even a humanitarian resolution. And let me just say, every life matters. And so it is important that we find a solution that will stop the killing and deaths and suffering of the Palestinian people. And that's why we're on the ground 24/7. No one else is putting their people out there. No one else is putting skin and boots on the ground to find a solution to this situation. And we'll keep working on that every single day.
So I think we have time for one more.
Hi, Ambassador. China described your position that the Algerian draft would undermine regional efforts at the hostage deal as completely untenable given the situation on the ground. Explain then, Ambassador, how the Algerian draft would have placed those talks in jeopardy, given that the Algerian text also called for the immediate release of those hostages.
Yes, but they also call for an immediate ceasefire, which would give Hamas the cover of not releasing the hostage. Part of the ceasefire that we're working on requires that they do exactly that, and this resolution did not make that connection. And it was our concern that it would send the wrong message to Hamas, that this resolution, which actually gives them something that they have asked for without requiring them to do something in return, would have meant that the fighting would have continued. Because without the hostage releases, we know that the fighting is going to continue. Thank you all.
Okay, why don't we listen to Jane Austen as she delivers the throne speech in British Columbia.
Please be seated. Aitzquaichos, Chedacha, good afternoon, friends, Mr. Speaker, Premier, honorable members. I am pleased to deliver the speech from the throne, laying out your government's plan to build a stronger BC that works better for people now and into the future. I would like to start by acknowledging the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt, upon whose territories we are gathered today. And a special thanks to Elder Butch Dick of the Songhees Nation and Elder Marianne Thomas of the Esquimalt Nation for starting us off in a good way, and to the Lekwungen dancers and drummers for a welcoming paddle song. Haishkasiyam. I also want to thank Rabbi Harry Breckner of Congregation Emmanuel for offering prayers and reflection. This building, long a symbol of colonialism, now has messages written in the Lekwungen language permanently inscribed on its stone perimeter. These words about ancestors, warriors, and children symbolize a new era, one of the meaningful reconciliation, where we work together to preserve Indigenous languages and acknowledge the true history of these lands. As Hereditary Chief Edward Thomas Sr. of the Esquimalt Nation said during the unveiling, it's a long time coming. Words and symbols like this are undoubtedly important, but actions must follow. That's why your government remains committed to implementing the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which was endorsed unanimously by this legislature. This work is about partnership and cooperation, which underpins everything we do here. Most importantly, it's about a better future for everyone who calls this land home. As has become recent tradition, we begin by remembering some of those we have lost in the past year. We mourn the remarkable Gloria Cranmer, Webster, who dedicated her life to the preservation and celebration of Indigenous culture. We also mourn her younger brother, Tlaquagila, Bill Cranmer, as we do other Indigenous leaders, including Samoy Getsatson, Mel Bevan, Charles Williams, Lisa Wolfe, Stephanie Patterson, Rick Gilbert, Byron Joseph, Natasha Grace Wilson, and former Cowichan Tribes Chief, Skalhe Elno, William Chip Seymour. We mourn Gordon Gibson Jr. and Patty Sahota, who once served in this legislature, as we do former members of Parliament Stephen Owen and Pat Carney. In the arts, we mourn carver Tomoson Charles Elliott and photographer Diane Evans, as we do entertainers Bill Hosey, Chad Allen, Jason Hoover, and actor Carl Weathers, who frequently filmed in Vancouver and played linebacker for the BC Lions. From the world of sports, we mourn rower Dean Crawford and sports writer Jack Keating. From media, we mourn broadcasters Red Robinson, Deborah Hope, Kuljit Kaila, Ted Farr, as we do Bob Stahl. We mourn labor leader Ray Haynes, environmentalist Kevin Bell, conservationist John Nightingale, communications executive Phil Lind, inventor Phil Newton, Judge Selwyn Romilly, disability advocate George Lawson, and CEO of Sherry Punjab and longtime philanthropist Ajit Singh Bad. From medicine, we mourn registered nurse Ivana Brennan, Dr. Yuri Frolik, and Dr. Gurdeep Singh Gill. We mourn Ben Mizrahi, a medic from Vancouver who was tending to the wounded at a music festival in Israel when murdered by Hamas terrorists. Be a blessing. We mourn those who answer the nation's call, including Reuben Sinclair, who, on his passing, was Canada's oldest military veteran. We mourn Sergeant Michael Leo and RCMP Constable Rick O'Brien. We mourn the firefighters who lost their lives during this summer's record wildfires: Devin Gale, Zach Muse, Kenneth Patrick, Blaine Sonnenberg, Jackson Billy Boy Bowe, and Damian Dyson, as we do Langford Assistant Fire Chief Lance Caven. We also mourn and reflect on the loss of so many British Columbians from toxic, unregulated drugs. To all who have lost a loved one in the past year, we extend our sympathies and our condolences. We acknowledge and share your grief. It is fitting that as we open this final session of BC's 42nd Parliament, communities around the province are celebrating the beginning of the Year of the Dragon. According to legends, 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac were selected through a race. The dragon, the only mythological animal, claimed 5th place. When the Jade Emperor asked why he didn't win the race when he could fly, the dragon responded, "First, I encountered a village suffering from drought, so I stopped to make rain. Then I saw a rabbit stranded on a log in the water and blew a puff of wind so the log would float to the riverbank." In many ways, the story of the dragon is like the story of BC over the last few years. Just look at how far we have come in a short period of time by looking out for each other. When we first gathered here almost 4 years ago, only a handful of members were able to attend safely in person. Outside these walls, many people's lives and livelihoods hung in the balance. In the time since, we have faced the impacts of devastating climate emergencies and global upheaval. While your government focused on keeping people healthy and the economy moving, British Columbians were busy working together to rebuild our province stronger than ever. You got effective vaccines into grateful arms. You rebuilt highways after flooding in record time. You kept kids learning in classrooms and businesses operating during difficult circumstances, proving once again that here in BC, our greatest natural resource is the people of this province. By putting people first, we have built a strong foundation through tough times. Today, our unemployment rate is one of the lowest in Canada. In 2023, we added 74,000 new jobs, some of the strongest job growth in the country. We were the first among provinces in year-over-year growth in average hourly wages last year. In December, women's employment increased more than in any other province. Further proof that increasing wages and reducing childcare bills is good for families and good for business. Take Ruth, a young mom in Richmond with 3 kids. Thanks to your government's latest fee reduction, she's saving $1,000 a month and has been able to return to work as an engineer. Since 2017, We have helped over 250,000 people get out of poverty through supports like job training. Your government understands that people want to work and feel better off when they have a job and community connection. No, don't worry. It's a pleasure to have a child in the chamber. And I think we all feel that, so don't you worry. That's why action will be taken this session to further break down barriers for those who can work, while your government continues to support those who cannot. And we are seeing other reasons to be optimistic. Since the pandemic, tourists are coming back to BC in droves, and we can expect that to continue as BC hosts the 2024 Grey Cup, followed by the Invictus Games and 7 of the FIFA Men's World Cup Games in Vancouver. The film industry is booming again, too. After 3 years of disruption and labor disputes south of the border, Hollywood North is back. Vancouver's tech sector is growing at one of the highest rates in North America, and BC is home to the fastest growing life sciences sector in Canada, with 2,000 companies employing almost 20,000 British Columbians. While BC's economy is strong and growing, your government is nowhere near satisfied. Too many people are not feeling it yet. Too many are still struggling to get ahead. After decades where our housing market was allowed to serve the interests of investors and speculators, even those who earn a decent middle-class income are finding it hard to afford a home. People have a lot on their minds right now. They are facing some big new challenges today. High interest rates are causing considerable anxiety for anyone whose mortgage is coming up for renewal. Inflation has made the cost of groceries and daily essentials increasingly expensive. This has meant more people taking extra shifts or worrying about paying bills each month. The world is changing fast. New technology has made our lives easier and more connected in many ways, but it has also made them harder in others. Parents are struggling to protect their kids from dangers that are now in the palms of their hands. Working people are struggling to make a good living and to be treated with fairness in the gig economy. And people all over are struggling to find an affordable home because thousands have been diverted into short-term rentals like Airbnbs. While governments can't solve every problem or fix things overnight, your government makes a simple commitment to you. It will have your back so you are not facing these new challenges alone. Because leaving people to fend for themselves does not work. It did not work before, and it will not work now. It would mean deep cuts that weaken the services we rely on. It would drive up costs with added fees and fares, like the return of healthcare premiums or tolls on roads and bridges. And it would leave people at risk to those who take unfair advantage and put profits ahead of people. Everyone here in BC wants to be able to build a good life. People just starting out in their adult lives want to be able to afford their rent and find good jobs and opportunities in the communities where they grew up. Young families want to know that living in a decent home is within reach and that childcare is available and affordable. Seniors want to know that after a lifetime of hard work, they will be cared for and will be able to help their kids and grandkids. That's why your government will continue to work tirelessly with you to take action on all the things that matter most to you. For generations, there was an unspoken promise. If you worked hard, got an education, and played by the rules, you could make a good middle-class living and be able to afford a decent home. About 3 decades ago, that started to change. In the name of austerity, governments at all levels stopped investing in affordable housing. Wealthy speculators, foreign investors, and big developers rushed to fill the void. For far too long, we also saw the proceeds of illegal activity parked in BC's real estate market. Housing costs went up, and in recent years, the combination of inflation, interest rate hikes, and a lack of supply has only made the situation harder for people looking to buy or rent a home. This is a generational challenge, and we must meet the moment. Doing nothing is not an option, and tinkering around the edges will not fix the problem. That's why your government has taken strong action on all fronts to tackle the crisis head on. Landmark changes made over the last year are helping to lay the foundation for a housing market that will work better for people, turning short-term rentals like Airbnbs into longer-term homes, speeding up housing permit approvals, fixing zoning rules that block construction of middle-class homes in existing neighborhoods, setting municipal targets for new housing construction, getting more homes built near public transit, building student housing at an unprecedented pace, and protecting affordable rentals from being turned into luxury condos by big real estate corporations. This month, the first purchase was made by the Rental Protection Fund, saving nearly 300 affordable co-op units in Coquitlam. Thanks to tough legislation passed by this legislature, BC is now able to seize properties from organized criminals because homes are for people, not for money laundering. While it will take time for people to feel the full benefit of these changes, we are starting to see early positive signs. These changes are already helping people like Andrew, a 41-year-old small business owner in Vancouver. Andrew is now renting a one-bedroom apartment he can afford, thanks to an influx of new inventory that hit the market after this legislature passed a law restricting short-term rentals. In 2023, BC saw a record-setting 19,000 new rental homes registered, a 30% increase from the year before. Taken together, experts predict these changes will deliver hundreds of thousands of new homes in the next 10 years. This builds on the work your government has already done to support 78,000 homes that are either complete or on the way. Your government understands that for every Andrew, there are still thousands of other middle-income British Columbians who need help finding a home. Breaking down barriers for home builders is part of the solution, but governments getting out of the way completely is how we got into this crisis in the first place. The market alone has not been able to deliver the homes that working and middle-class people need. As a result, the people who are providing the services we all count on, like teachers, construction workers, and nurses, are being priced out of communities. This is holding back our economy, weakening public services, and hurting us all. It was not always this way. During the Second World War, the federal government built houses for workers so they could build warships in Esquimalt and bombers in Richmond. At the end of the war, the demand for housing was even greater as returning veterans looked to rebuild lives interrupted by military service. Once again, the government stepped in. The mass production used in the war effort was transferred to building homes for the growing middle class. Prefabricated homes with a choice of standard plans appeared in communities all across the country. They were offered to veterans at reasonable rents and later for sale. Known as Victory Homes, they offered secure, affordable housing for many families, and many of them are still standing. The same spirit that animated our country then is what is needed in our province today. That's why your government has launched BC Builds, the next step in the Homes for People plan. BC Builds will leverage government-owned, public and underutilized land, grant money, and low-cost financing to bring down construction costs and make more middle-class housing projects viable. This is a model that has been used in cities around the world. These homes will also be built faster with more efficient provincial and local government approvals. And they will be income tested, designed for the middle-class people who keep our communities working so they can live close to where they work. Think of homes connected to schools or on top of community centers and libraries. Think of homes on underused land next to hospitals or empty parking lots, transformed into homes for working and middle-class families. And your government will not stop there. In this session, action will be taken to protect renters from bad faith evictions and to help more first-time homebuyers get on the ownership ladder. As we dramatically increase housing supply, so too must we build up the infrastructure and services to support this growth. Through the billion-dollar Growing Communities Fund and partnerships with other levels of government, that is exactly what we are doing here in British Columbia. In Langley, construction has started on an expanded events center that will add 3 new ice rinks and better support the needs of a booming population. Just over a year ago, Prince Rupert had to issue a state of emergency, and crews worked through the holidays after a major line break that threatened the community's water supply. Today, your government is helping the city replace crucial sections of its aging water distribution system to ensure people there have safe drinking water. In the year ahead, significant work will continue to cut commute times for families and to keep our economy moving. Construction is set to begin on the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain, the first rapid transit project south of the Fraser River in 30 years, and to continue on the Broadway subway project. Taken together, these projects will increase our SkyTrain network by 27%. This will help thousands of families get to work and back home to their families sooner. So too will continued improvements to Highway 1 through the Fraser Valley. Top of mind for many British Columbians right now is public health care. Specifically, they want to know they can count on care to be there when they need it. BC rose to the challenge in 2020 to make sure people were cared for and healthcare workers in our hospitals were supported. But we face new challenges today. Communities are growing, our population is getting older, and a large number of doctors and nurses are retiring. We are not alone in this. Our neighbors and countries around the world are also feeling the strain, all competing for the same small pool of healthcare professionals. That's why your government has been taking action to improve access to care, and it is starting to make a difference. BC has eliminated the pandemic surgery backlog. Recent changes have helped hundreds of thousands of people to see a pharmacist to treat minor illnesses, so doctors and nurse practitioners can focus on sicker patients. BC is building more hospitals, primary care clinics, cancer centers, and care homes closer to where you live through the largest healthcare capital strategy in the province's history. And our province will be home to the first new medical school in Western Canada in more than 50 years at Simon Fraser University's Surrey campus, which will have a focus on training the next generation of family doctors. BC added more than 700 doctors and almost 6,300 new nurses over the last year. We are leading the country with better and faster ways to prevent and detect cervical cancer. Last month's launch of the first at-home self-screening program for HPV means that ending deadly cervical cancer in British Columbia is now a very real possibility. At 36 sites across BC, our lung cancer screening program is helping to find cancer earlier so people can get treatment sooner. More than 5,000 lung screening tests were done in the first year of the program alone. This early detection is saving the lives of people like Shannon from North Vancouver, whose cancer screening came back positive, even though she displayed no symptoms. While progress is being made on many fronts, there is still a lot more to do. This session, your government will continue the work it has started to attract, train, and retain the doctors and nurses we need. It will make new investments to strengthen home and community long-term care services for seniors. And it will take new action to build on our 10-year cancer plan. Just as important as improving people's physical health is providing better support for mental health and addictions treatment. The latest coroner's update on the toxic drug crisis is a heartbreaking reminder that we need to keep using every tool in our toolbox. We must continue our work to reduce harm and stigma, to keep people who are struggling alive. And when someone makes the brave decision to break free from addiction, we must ensure they have access to treatment and recovery closer to where they live. That's why your government is working to build a more connected system of mental health and addictions care. Almost 3,600 publicly funded treatment and recovery beds are opened throughout the province, with more on the way. This work is helping people like Richard, who is 2 years sober and has his life back on track after receiving treatment at Discovery House in Penticton. Here in BC, we know that supporting people is the key to building a strong economy. When we lower childcare bills, we help parents enter or re-enter the workforce. When we deliver more affordable homes, we make our communities more attractive for businesses. When we increase the minimum wage, we raise the purchasing power of people who are more likely to spend that money locally. When we connect every rural, remote, and First Nations community to high-speed internet, as your government has pledged to do by 2027, we are helping connect people to jobs and opportunities. When we build up our highways, bridges, and ports, we strengthen our supply chains and help to get our products to market. Good for people is good for business. At a time when inflation has caused the price of daily essentials to rise sharply, helping people and families get costs down is key to building an economy that works for everyone. In just the past year, your government has taken many steps to do just that. New cost of living credits have been sent out, including a $100 credit on BC Hydro bills. An increase to the BC Family Benefit means families now qualify for hundreds of dollars more per year. And an enhanced climate action tax credit is putting as much as $900 back in the pockets of more than 2 million British Columbians. Free contraception is helping people save hundreds of dollars a year and thousands over their lifetimes. ICBC car insurance rates have been frozen after being cut, on average, by $500 a year for drivers. New investments in food security are helping people better access an increased supply of low-cost local food, and rates have been kept affordable for everyone who relies on BC ferries to get to work, run errands, and visit loved ones. These measures build on the work done over the last 7 years to make life a little easier, eliminating MSP premiums, the largest middle-class tax cut in a generation, ending tolls on the Port Mann and Golden Ears bridges, making public transit free for kids 12 and under, and stopping interest payments on student loans. This session, your government will take new actions to help people with costs while tackling the root causes that are making life so expensive, like housing affordability. It will do more to help small and growing businesses, many of whom are still finding their feet after the pandemic and are facing new challenges today. Foundational to our province and the backbone of many local economies are our natural resources. From First Nations whose deep connection to the land and water goes back millennia, to communities of all kinds who depend on forestry, mining, and energy for jobs today. We all share a stake in making sure a strong, sustainable natural resource sector is a core part of BC's future. While climate change poses real challenges, BC's natural resources put us in a unique position to excel in shifting economic times and maximize the benefits to people here. Your government has a plan to leverage our natural strengths as a province to create good jobs and opportunities for everyone, in partnership with Indigenous people, industry, and local communities. To borrow a line from our country's favorite sport, BC must skate to where the puck will be, not to where it has already been. By leveraging our strengths in mining to meet global demand for clean technology, like battery cells, by leveraging the strengths of BC's forests with a more reliable fiber supply, and by enabling more made-in-BC wood manufacturing, and by levering our strengths as a clean energy superpower to help industries electrify and ensure BC is a global leader in the clean economy. Specifically, BC will embark on an unprecedented level of construction over the next 10 years, building our electricity system to power a growing clean economy and deliver affordable, reliable power for people. Already this plan is in action all around the province. In the Northwest, Prince George is home to Canada's first standalone renewable diesel refinery, and is a growing hub for clean hydrogen. Soon, the Canfor pulp mill will be using clean hydrogen to help power its operations. Further to the west is the future site of Cedar LNG in Kitimat, which your government will be the largest First Nations majority-owned energy project in the country and one of the cleanest liquefied natural gas facilities in the world. In Maple Ridge, the new E1 Moly facility will create hundreds of good local jobs for people, and it will establish BC as a leading producer of the battery components we need to power a clean energy future. At the same time, we can't continue the old way of doing things. The future is in partnership with First Nations and in sustainable development, whether it's forestry, mining, or energy. BC companies are leading the way, embracing reconciliation and the opportunities that come with it. Like the recent deal between 4 members of the Nanwakolas Council and Western Forest Products, an agreement that represents an important step forward for First Nations participation in the forest economy. A sustainable energy future will ensure cleaner air for future generations and industries they can rely on for good jobs. Your government's plan to grow a strong economy while protecting the environment is working. With the goal of protecting 30% of our land and water by 2030, historic action is being taken in partnership with First Nations, the federal government, and local communities. This will help us conserve both the natural beauty around us, which is also a critical source of fresh food, clean drinking water, and our best line of defense against the impacts of climate change. Our net greenhouse gas emissions are down 5% from 6 years ago, when our continent-leading Clean BC plan was first launched. In that same period, British Columbia has achieved the highest average GDP growth among large provinces. This shows that supporting people, advancing reconciliation, protecting the environment, and growing the economy go hand in hand. The cost of inaction on climate change is simply too high. It is our homes and our communities in the path of wildfires. It is our crops and our farms at risk of flooding or drought. It is our kids and grandkids who stand to lose the nature that surrounds them. The climate crisis is here. We have seen it all around us these last few years, and we are expecting another tough drought and wildfire season this summer. Last year, your government launched an expert task force on emergencies. The goal was to determine how we can better support those on the front lines and help apply the lessons we have learned in preparation for the next emergency. This year, your government is turning recommendations into action and working side by side with communities and partners to help ensure that people are better protected from wildfires with more full-time, year-round staff and resources. And it will continue to work to prevent this devastating effects of flooding we saw after the catastrophic atmospheric river in 2021. Just last week, new funding was announced to upgrade the Barrowtown pump station in Abbotsford and protect farmers in the Sumas prairies and communities in the Fraser Valley. Your government will also take new actions this session to reduce carbon pollution from big industrial emitters, which are driving climate change in the first place. A key challenge in the years ahead is to make sure everyone in BC can seize the tremendous opportunities ahead of us. Over the next 10 years, BC will need to fill almost 1 million job openings, many in the emerging clean economy. 75% of these jobs will require workers to have some kind of post-secondary education and training. That's why your government launched the Future Ready Action Plan to equip people for success in our changing economy and to close the skills gap employers are facing. As your government works to make training and education more accessible and affordable in BC, it is also bringing in new safeguards to make sure our international education programs are training people for the skills we need. These new measures will help protect international students against bad actors while making sure BC continues to attract talented students. This session, your government will also take new steps to recognize and better support First Nations mandated post-secondary institutes as a key pillar of BC's advanced education system. Every person in every community wants and deserves to feel safe. But the incidents of crime, violence, and hate seen here and across North America are worrying. That is why your government has been tackling these challenges, and we are seeing some real results. With stricter bail rules and prosecutors working with police and probation officers, repeat offenders are being kept off the streets. 256 new RCMP police down by 18%, and the number of unprovoked stranger assaults has decreased by 75% between the first half of 2021 and 2023. Your government is also addressing the core issues that bring people into conflict with the law and their neighbors. It is working with partners on the ground to move people from unsafe encampments into homes. It is helping people in crisis get compassionate care from others who know what they are going through. And it is helping more Indigenous people access culturally safe legal supports and services, with 5 new Indigenous Justice Centres now in operation. Action is also being taken to support the survivors of crime. Services to support survivors of sexual assault that were cut in 2002 have been restored, and new policing standards are now in place. While reports of many crimes are decreasing, we know that there has been a rise in anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Asian hate, and other incidents of racism. That's why this session, your government will build on the work being done to make BC a more welcoming and inclusive place by introducing new anti-racism legislation. And that's why your government is working with the Jewish community to make Holocaust education mandatory for high school students. Because combating this kind of hate begins with learning from the darkest parts of our history so the same horrors are never repeated. Keeping our kids safe and healthy is another top priority for your government. While a small minority of people in our province claim that teachers and school librarians are a danger to our kids, your government understands the real threats. Many of you are now aware of Carson, a 12-year-old boy from Prince George. Carson died by suicide last year after being extorted with private images he shared with somebody who was pretending to be somebody else. His parents, Ryan and Nicola, have been bravely sharing Carson's story to raise awareness and prevent this tragedy from happening to other families. This builds on the advocacy of Carol Todd, who has continued to shed light on the issue of bullying, cyberbullying, and online safety since losing her own daughter, Amanda Todd. Your government is committed to making sure that Carson and Amanda's legacies will protect kids in the future. That's why a new suite of concrete actions was launched last month to protect young people from online threats, restrict cell phones in schools, and hold big social media corporations to account. This is a part of a larger effort to keep kids safe and healthy, an effort which includes adding more support for mental health centers, launching an anti-vaping strategy, improving literacy screening, building new schools, and expanding nutrition programs. In Surrey and White Rock schools alone, more than 8,000 kids in need are getting daily nutritious meals, thanks to Feeding Futures, the largest investment in school food programs in the province's history. This spring, your government will take additional steps to keep kids safe and improve learning conditions for students. New legislation will be tabled to protect schools and kids from disruptive protests. While everyone has a right to freedom of expression, including peaceful protest, we will not tolerate attempts to disrupt children learning in the classroom. During the pandemic, when hospitals and healthcare workers became the target of aggressive protests, your government took action so doctors and nurses could get to work and patients could access care. And as schools increasingly become the target for protests, your government will take similar action to ensure classrooms are not disrupted and kids can feel safe at school. We are in a time where significant turmoil surrounds us. Wars in Europe and the Middle East are creating tensions around the world and here at home. Democratic norms and principles are being tested everywhere. Global economic uncertainty has families and businesses alike worried. As we begin this final session, we all face some big questions. Will we be a province where the people whose stories I have shared today, like Ruth, Andrew, Shannon, and Richard, are left to face tough challenges alone? Or will we continue to be a place where people take care of each other and build a better future? Your government is committed to rejecting division and working to bring people together to solve problems, because here in BC, our best days are still ahead of us. If we work together, this will be a place where everyone can build a good life, whether you live in a city, a town, a rural, or First Nations community, where the wages of working people go up, but the cost of a decent home does not, where we have more family doctors and shorter wait times in emergency rooms, where our economy grows, not in spite of climate action, but because of it, where our kids are safe in their communities, schools, and online, where everyone belongs, everyone can get ahead, and no one gets left behind. That is the vision your government is working hard every day to deliver. A stronger BC, one that works better for people. Thank you. And finally, I add my personal thanks to all of you who serve together in BC's Legislative Assembly, indeed to all who assume the noble task of serving in public office. I am so deeply grateful for your commitment to upholding our democracy in this increasingly fractious world, for your leadership, your collaboration, and your tireless work over the past year and always. I wish you all every possible success in meeting the opportunities and the challenges that lie ahead. Haitchkasiyam. Thank you, friends. I look forward to seeing you this evening.
And back to the United Nations, we're on the press floor.
Couple updates for you. First, I'll start with the situation in Gaza. The World Health Organization said today it has led 2 life-saving missions to transfer 32 critical patients, including 2 children, from Nasser Medical Complex in southern Gaza on the 18th and 19th of February. That was yesterday and the day before. This is, of course, amid ongoing hostilities and access restrictions. The high-risk missions were conducted in close partnership with the Palestinian Red Crescent Society and the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The team also provided limited supplies of essential medicines and food for the remaining patients and staff who are otherwise being cut off from aid. 4 Palestine Red Crescent ambulances ensured the safe transportation of the patients who underwent medical assessment and triage under the coordination of the hospital director. Nasser Hospital has no electricity or running water, and medical waste and garbage are creating a breeding ground for diseases. WHO staff said the destruction around the hospital was, quote, indescribable. The area was surrounded by burnt and destroyed buildings and heavy layers of debris with no stretch of intact road. An estimated 130 sick and injured patients and at least 15 doctors and nurses remain inside the hospital. WHO fears for the safety and well-being of the patients and health workers who are remaining in the hospital. And the agency also warns that further disruptions to life-saving care for the sick and injured would lead to more deaths. And in a statement issued today, the World Food Program said it's pausing its deliveries of food aid to the northern Gaza Strip until conditions are in place to allow the safe distribution of that aid. The decision to pause deliveries to the north has not been taken lightly. As we know, it means that the situation there will deteriorate further and more people risk of dying of hunger. The World Food Program is deeply committed, they tell us, to urgently reaching desperate people across Gaza, but the safety and security to deliver critical food aid and for the people receiving it must be ensured. Meanwhile, the humanitarian coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territory, Jamie McGoldrick, has wrapped up a visit to Gaza. Today, he visited the Karim Shalom crossing and the Rafah crossings and saw firsthand the challenges there to getting more humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. Yesterday, the World Health Organization, along with UNICEF and the World Food Program, issued the results of a new analysis that shows a steep rise in malnutrition among children and pregnant and breastfeeding women in the Gaza Strip. The report, entitled Nutrition, Vulnerability, and Situation Analysis in Gaza, finds the situation is particularly extreme in the northern Gaza Strip, which has been almost completely cut off from aid for weeks. Nutrition screenings conducted at shelters and health centers in the north found 15.6%, or 1 in 6 children under the age of 2 are acutely malnourished. Of these, almost 3% suffer from severe wasting, which is the most severe form of malnutrition. Turning to travel, the Deputy Secretary General is in Bangkok. Amina Mohammed, alongside Parnpree Bahida Nukara, the Thai Foreign Minister, as well as the Executive Secretary of ESCAP, that's the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, and that's Armida Salsia, Alice Jana. They, three of them opened the Asia-Pacific Regional Forum for Sustainable Development. In her remarks, the Deputy Secretary General stressed the need to continue to strive towards the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals and fulfilling the vision of the 2030 Agenda. She highlighted that the Asia-Pacific region has demonstrated how a long-term vision can be transformed into reality, adding that more progress is possible if we mobilize at a speed and scale and if we work together. The Deputy Secretary General then met with the Prime Minister of Thailand, Srettha Thavisin. They discussed Thailand's commitment to accelerating SDG implementation, including targeted actions towards the triple planetary crisis. She underscored the UN's commitment to supporting the government in these efforts. And on sidelines to the event, Ms. Mohammed also met with Wood Chong-um, the Managing Director General of the Asia Development Bank, to discuss actions related to the delivery of the SDG stimulus and reform of the international financial architecture. She is now on her way to Brazil to participate on behalf of the Secretary General in the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting. The Emergency Relief Coordinator for these United Nations, Martin Griffiths, today released $100 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund, known as CERF, to support 7 of the least funded humanitarian operations in Africa, the Americas, and the Middle East. These emergencies are in Sudan, in Syria, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They received $20 million each, with the remaining support going to Chad, Niger, Lebanon, and Honduras. Mr. Griffiths said the new allocation is a reminder of the crucial fund, the Emergency Response Fund, play the crucial role, at a time of immense needs and chronic underfunding of humanitarian appeals. Last year, less than 40% of the $15.6 billion needed to sustain humanitarian appeals around the globe was received. The emergency fund also received less funding in 2023, which is the lowest in the last 5 years. With donations at the lowest, CERF's life-saving impact is facing serious challenges. Mr. Griffiths is appealing to member states to step up and provide full funding. And just to update you on one of these crises, and that's Sudan, our colleagues from the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and the World Health Organization say that efforts to deliver life-saving health assistance to civilians across the country are continuing, despite the many obstacles that they face. Last month, our humanitarian partners provided medical consultations to more than 180,000 people in 12 of Sudan's states. They also delivered medicine to 115,000 people in 8 states and supported 16 mobile clinics in Darfur and Kordofan. The humanitarian coordinator for the country, Clementine Nkweta Salame, stressed that the unimpeded rapid passage of aid personnel, medicines, and other supplies must be ensured to support an estimated 25 million men, women, and children in need of desperate humanitarian assistance in Sudan. Turning to the Sahel, the World Food Program today called for urgent support to safeguard the programs that help communities impacted by various crises in the region. In 2018, WFP had been working with governments and partners on resilience programs in the Sahel. That includes Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger. helping communities access locally grown and nutritious food. Thanks to sustained donor funding, more than 290,000 hectares of degraded land have been restored and 4 million people have benefited, and that's in over 3,200 villages across the Sahel. However, the Rome-based state, the programs are at imminent risk of being suspended due to a lack of funding. From March onwards, WFP will be forced to reduce or stop resilience activities across the Sahel, and particularly in Niger. To sustain its resilience building support across the region, WFP requires $183.1 million for the next 12 months. And moving to Ukraine, our colleagues at the UN Refugee Agency said that after 2 years of full-scale war in Ukraine, amidst massive destruction and ongoing shelling and missile attacks across the country, the future for millions who have been displaced remains shrouded in uncertainty. According to UNHCR, there are currently almost 6.5 million refugees from Ukraine who have sought refuge globally, while some 3.7 million people remain forcibly displaced inside their own country. A recent UNHCR study shows that the majority of Ukrainian refugees and internally displaced people, that's 65 and 72% respectively, still express a desire to return home one day. However, the proportion has declined, with more expressing uncertainty due to the ongoing war. And in that regard, I just want to flag that on Friday's Security Council meeting on Ukraine, the Secretary General will be delivering remarks. Moving across the globe to Papua New Guinea, our UN team there has strongly condemned the killing of over 53 million, let's try it again. Our team in Papua New Guinea has strongly condemned the killing of over 53 people in the highland provinces of Enga in Papua New Guinea, and calls for an immediate cessation of violence and warns against possible retaliation following the killings. Richard Howard, the resident coordinator, urged all parties to immediately cease all fighting and called on authorities to fully investigate the killings with a view to bringing the perpetrators to justice. Our team on the ground stands ready to support the government in addressing long-standing issues with a never arms, and remains committed to assisting the government in limiting tribal violence and bringing lasting peace to the highlands. We have a new resident coordinator to announce for, not that you would know, for Nigeria. Very important job. The UN, our Secretary General has appointed Mr. Mohamed Malik Fall of Senegal as the resident coordinator in Nigeria, following confirmation by the host government. He took his post up over the weekend and will also serve as the humanitarian coordinator for Nigeria. With more than 20 years of experience in development and humanitarian and peace-building affairs, Mr. Fall will lead the work of our UN team on the ground, boosting Nigeria's commitments to advance the sustainable development goals and to leave no one behind. We congratulate him on that post. Today is a day to mark something that we are lacking: social justice. Yep. The World Day for Social Justice. This day reminds us of the needs to build fair and more equitable societies. The International Labor Organization will mark the occasion with a series of events to discuss how to put social justice at the center of international, national, and regional policy agendas. Benno Schwinghammer.
I fight with the microphone. Okay, you saw the Security Council and you saw that the United States blocked a ceasefire call. What's your reaction?
Well, I mean, it's not the first time we've seen a veto in the Security Council. I think our message and the Secretary's message has been to repeatedly call for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. The Secretary General continues to hope that the Security Council will find a way to speak with one voice on this issue. But I think it is also important to remember that there have been a number of resolutions that have passed since October 7th, and it is important that Council members and the international community continue their efforts to move for the implementation of the existing resolutions, notably 2172 and 2720.
Okay, and the Israeli ambassador called UNRWA in his speech a terrorist organization. I guess you might want to dispute that.
UNRWA remains and is the backbone of the humanitarian work that is being done in Gaza at great cost to UNRWA staff themselves. It remains the backbone of not only humanitarian but development, socioeconomic, and educational work for Palestine refugees in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, and the occupied West Bank. We again call on donors to support the critical work that UNRWA does. Ibtisam, then Abdelhamid, then Deji, and then Dennis.
Thank you, Steph. Follow up first on the UNRWA question. Does this worry you that such a statement by the Israeli ambassador could put the life of many UNRWA workers in danger?
Yeah, I mean, these sort of incendiary statements are not helpful to the humanitarian work that we're trying to do in Gaza and in other parts of the Middle East.
And on the American veto, this is actually the fourth American veto if we take into consideration the veto on the amendment for the December resolution. Do you believe that the US, in this case, and other countries in other cases, is misusing its veto power? Thank you.
We know every time a permanent member of the Security Council vetoes, they now have to go and explain themselves, in a sense, in front of the General Assembly. This will happen. This will happen again. The veto is the five countries that hold the veto have a great amount of responsibility, and I think there needs to be explanation on how that veto is used. Abdelhamid.
Thank you. Hussam Abu Safiya, the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in Gaza, said the following: we are receiving malnourished children, and they are dying in front of us. Famine is becoming a major reason for death of children. How could the SG react to such a statement? Can he really
how we're reacting to such statements? Yeah. I mean, look at what the UN system is trying to do in the face of overwhelming odds, right? We just had a team that went into the middle of a conflict zone to the Nasser hospital to rescue patients. We have tried our best to deliver food and supplies to those who need it the most. I mean, our colleagues at the World Food Program and UNICEF and WHO have just issued a report on the risk of the growing risks and suffering and hunger, especially in the north. So I think on one hand, we're operationally doing whatever we can, and then on the other hand, we're continuing to advocate for the people who are suffering, to ensure that policymakers and those member states that have the resources are aware of the dire needs of the people in Gaza. Deji.
Yeah, though we know that this is not the first time a Security Council draft resolution has been vetoed, but the 4 times that US vetoed the resolution, they are about one thing: ceasefire, which the Secretary General called for. In this condition, what else do you think the Secretary General could do to really push for his goal?
The Secretary General is continuing to advocate and push, as you say, for his goal in his meetings with policymakers that he has behind closed doors and very much in public, and his team on the ground is continuing to advocate for the same thing.
And today, during his speech, Israeli ambassador then talked a lot about why the ceasefire is not necessary. Indeed, he said it will let Hamas to leave and come back, and there's no good for a ceasefire. He kind of forgot Palestinian people. I mean, does the UN communicate with the Israeli mission about the ceasefire? I think you guys.
Listen, we have. I mean, every representative that speaks in front of the Security Council knows what they're saying. They're putting forward their national positioned. The Secretary General and his representative in the Secretariat, when they brief the Council, whether it's Tor Venesland, whether it's Sigrid Kaag, whether it's Martin Griffiths or anyone else, put forward the facts as we are witnessing them. Member states will take that information and will do whatever they want with it.
Which means the UN did convey to the Israeli part
it's not a matter of us having.
to save civilian lives.
Deji.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Deji, it is not ours. Whether it's the U.S., whether it's the Israelis, whether it's the mission, whether it's a representative of Palestine or any other country, they all have the facts, right? They don't need. They have the facts and they're saying what they want to say.
Okay.
Dennis.
Last week, updated Ukraine recovery and reconstruction needs assessment report was released. So I wonder, were there any similar reports prepared when U.S. convened its military operations in Afghanistan, Syria, or Iraq?
When?
When U.S. convened military operations in Afghanistan, Syria, or Iraq?
Well, there have been these reports are done at the request of the governments. There has been plenty of data and reports done on the needs for reconstruction in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and in Syria, though I have to check about Syria. But I know in terms of reconstruction needs after conflict, they've been done for other countries.
And for this as well? For Afghanistan and Iraq as well?
No, for Afghanistan and Iraq as well, yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Ephraim, and then Stefano, and then we'll come back to the room.
Thank you, Steph. There are increasing concerns we're hearing from Washington, D.C. that the Congress is headed towards permanently stopping or halting the funding for UNRWA. Is this a concern for the Secretary General as well?
Well, of course it's a concern. And the United States was a major, if not the major funder for UNRWA. We very much hope that countries that have the resources that may not have given to UNRWA as generously in the past will make up the difference. As you know, similar to my answer to Deji, I mean, member states will take the decisions that they take for the reasons that they feel they need to take them. There is money in the world, and there is enough money to fund UNRWA's operations. Currently, I mean, I was speaking to an UNRWA colleague just an hour ago. I mean, they will meet their salary and operational needs for February. March is much more complicated at this point. So we need those countries that have the resources to give in solidarity and to give to help the people that need it.
We're also seeing the U.S. Pressing for other agencies to do the job of UNRWA, including the WFP and UNICEF. And what does the Secretary General think of those calls?
The Secretary General, I think, was much more eloquent than I could ever be in answering that question at his press conference. There is no alternative to UNRWA, given its size, given the number of local staff that it employs that cannot be replaced. UNRWA is other agencies, WFP, UNICEF, cannot step in, or WHO, and step in and do the work that UNRWA does. Stefano, then Mr. Schwinghammer.
Thank you, Stefan. Yeah, it's a follow-up on UNRWA. Actually, there is an article by Colin Lynch that came out today on the DEVEX website that says that there is basically a clash between the United States and the Secretary General about UNRWA because apparently UN chief presses relief agency to rebuff American appeals to take over tasks from the Palestinian Refugee Agency. Basically, apparently from this article...
Stefano, I've read the article. I've read the article. So you've read the article. What is the question?
the reaction. Is it true? What's happening?
But,
there?
you know,
That-
I
that's-
think Mr. Lynch, like most journalists, sees different statements and gets different information and facts, and then does his analysis and puts something together. I mean, what is clear, and I think I just literally said it 34 seconds ago to Ephraim, there is no getting around UNRWA, right? No agency can come in and take over the role that UNRWA does. The Secretary General here a few days ago said it in very stark terms as well, that the other agencies do not have the capacity to come in and take over that role. Benno.
Yeah, but well, I didn't finish. I'm sorry. Another question is on the Navalny issue. Of course, there have been already several questions, but because still the body of Navalny was not shown to his mother, and there is a lot going on this. Does the Secretary General has any message for the Russian government about this issue or not showing the?
Well, I mean, I think I answered that question yesterday, where we thought it would, and I said, please, I can't be expected to remember what I said the day before, but what I believe I said yesterday is that it was important that the body of Mr. Navalny be returned to his family, and that states have particular responsibility towards people it incarcerates.
And the last things on related to this question is in Belarus, a political prisoner here, Lednik, has died in custody. Any comment on that?
I have to see that report. I have not seen that. Benno, then Abdelhamid.
Thank you. Another report is that the Russian President Putin sent Kim Jong-un of North Korea a luxury car, like a full-sized luxury sedan, and says, "Are you okay with that?" I mean, like, there are sanctions
Am I
in place.
okay with that? I have no way. I don't want to make light of it. I have no way to judge the veracity of those reports. I don't have any comment.
But I mean, like, there are sanctions, and luxury cars
I literally have no comment. As much as I like luxury cars. Abdelhamid.
Thank you. As you just said, WFP is suspending its operation for security reasons, and UNRWA is being underfunded. Would those developments make it much harder for people to survive in Gaza?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. It's only Tuesday. Yes. Sorry to tell you. Sorry to give you some breaking news.
Thank you for listening today. You've been listening to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. Please find that subscribe button wherever it may be on your screen. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.